Hey there, Annabelle Drumm from Drum Roll. Welcome along. And today I've got with me an international violin concertmaster who specialises in historically informed performance, or HIP. She's worked with some of the finest HIP ensembles in Europe, and here in Australia has been a guest concertmaster with the Australian Brandenburg Orchestra, Pinchgad Opera, Opera Australia, as well as Victorian Opera. In 2013, she co-founded the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra with the director and music education legend Richard Gill, and she continues his legacy with that orchestra today. She's featured in more than 50 recorded albums and listed in the who's who of Australian women. I'd like to welcome Rachel Beasley.
Thank you, Annabelle.
I haven't seen you up at the radio station in Sydney for a long time because you're down in Melbourne, aren't you?
Yes. At the moment, I'm based back in my hometown. Despite the restrictions, we've actually been able to communicate much more easily with a lot of people because we don't have to be in the same city at the same time.
Yeah, and Zoom has really taken off, hasn't it?
Yes. Oh my goodness. I've been on Zoom so much for teaching, especially.
And you were meant to be doing some travelling through all this time as well, weren't you?
Yes, I would have actually been teaching in The Hague in March, and I would have been doing a recording with an ensemble called Les Moufati, which is a Belgian orchestra which specialises in Baroque music. And we would have been doing some concerts in Brussels in the main concert hall. And mainly at the moment I should be in New York working with some extraordinary musicians over there.
The problem is that all of that stuff was booked 2 years ahead or, a long way ahead, a lot of these things.
Yeah, that's something that we've all taken into consideration in looking at the future, and all of these events will go ahead in the future and have been rescheduled. So I'm looking forward to next year's bonanza of programs. I think it's the amount of process that you put in. I mean, you say, yes, you're booked 2 years in advance, but actually you're already thinking about the music. You're already involved in that whole artistic side, especially if you're directing, which is the position that I'm in, and just living with that music and just waiting for that opportunity to perform it live.
So the concerts now that are going digital, which is a fantastic idea, and we've got to try and get the income moving for performers again all around the world, not just here in Australia. How do you find they're different with your audience? Because I've seen some, I haven't actually been sitting in on them lately. How have you found them?
Well, I've found it an incredibly inspiring source of of music making. That it's incredibly motivating seeing all your colleagues putting all of their energy into performing in this new platform. So digital, online, live streaming, but also sort of bringing to air kind of a lot of recordings that we've done in the past. Especially with my orchestra, with the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra, we've worked very hard to make a lot of content available for our audiences who have been missing our performances.
Well, I know lots of people really want to support performers at the moment. We look back at when the bushfires happened just before, over Christmas and through into January. The performers were the first people to come out and donate their time to help those victims and raise money. And now it's the other way around. You've got all these people that have got salaries and their income is flowing fine, and they know that all those performers that donated their time are now sitting there going, can you help me, please? So having these digital concerts with tickets available, I think, is a fantastic idea.
Yes, and we're incredibly honoured that Chris Howlett and Adele Schoenhardt invited the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra to perform, and we'll be performing on July 10th in the Melbourne venue, so in the Athenaeum Theatre in Melbourne. Our orchestra is actually a nationally based orchestra, so we have musicians in many different states. My co-artistic director lives on the Sunshine Coast, and I live in Melbourne. And
there's got to be something really unique about your orchestra, right? So Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra, so spread out over how many cities? Where are the
yes, every city in Australia, and also many European-based Australian musicians as well. Nicole Van Broeken and I are really working very hard to support our musicians. That was one of our first priorities when all of this changed, especially the ones that we have invited to run our education program. So we've been really working very closely to see what opportunities we can create for our musicians to be able to continue working.
So tell us a little bit about the music that you're going to have in this program.
Well, it was wonderful to be able to choose a program that highlights the strings in the orchestra And also I wanted to choose something that really represents all of our repertoire. So we're looking at some classical repertoire, early romantic repertoire, and also repertoire from the Mannheim period with Richter. So we're doing this program with 6 string players, and we're really excited to also show that transitional period in music and see what different effects went through from the Mannheim all the way through to the early romantic period. And it's a beautiful program with the central heart of the beating heart of
main
this
course
program. Yes, is the Cavatina from Beethoven's String Quartet Opus 130. In the same week, we're running our Young Mannheim Symphonists program, and this year we're going to do it online. We were intending to do our programs in each capital city, and all the musicians were auditioned and they were all raring to go in the same week. So the 6th and 7th of July, we're going to be presenting a series of lectures, lessons, masterclasses with these students who have already enrolled in our program, just to give them something that they may not even get normally in a live situation. So it's an interesting thing about being online is you can often enhance the learning process by giving more direct information, more sources, more listening examples that perhaps sometimes even in a live situation, you don't always have the same luxury in the same space to have so many people there.
It's wonderful being able to extend what's going on with all these big changes and not just sort of scraping by, but actually enhancing, like you said, changing
Absolutely.
it into something far bigger, and that's great. And also the idea of watching the rehearsals is brilliant, because like you're saying, with most students, they want to be able to see what speed are they expected to go at in the learning part, but I don't mean the tempo of the music, but how fast are they expected if they want to be a professional musician? What do they need to listen for when the musical director is saying, you've got to do this or that, and can they pick up on the language
and how prepared you're expected to be for a rehearsal. And I think what's special about our orchestra, and that was always very apparent with Richard Gill when he was there as well, is the curiosity element. We're all just completely fascinated in the historical side of the music, but also the physical engagement with historical instruments, the tactile experience of playing on gut strings and noticing what that does, or on the period wind and period brass instruments. What does that do to the music? What are the instruments sort of saying to us? What can we do to make that language very clear to our audience? And when we get together in rehearsals, that's one of the most exciting things about our orchestra, I think, is the community of musicians who have all spent their entire careers specializing and wanting to know even more. So there's no sort of end game with this. It's a continuous space of learning, and the students quickly recognize that when they're around that environment. We need to engage more with the arts and give the arts an opportunity to flourish at the moment. It feels like that's a very tough way of making a living at the moment, and I do think it is down to a lot of resilience that comes from artists. I know that they will get through that, but they do need that support. And what you were saying about the audience support, I think that's a very important thing to realize, that audiences have a big part in making sure that the arts do survive and do carry on.
Yeah, obviously we're sort of losing our federal support. It seems to be very much dwindling, and so it's up to the audience now to take responsibility and keep it going, because that's the culture, isn't it? What is the difference from one city to the next if you end up with a whole lot of sort of chain stores and major corporations that are in every city? What makes it unique are the people that are the artists and the creatives. It's ever changing, of course, it's always dynamic, but to support the arts is so crucial. And this is a place that you can do it. So the concert is Friday, 10th of July. And as mentioned, it's going to be live streamed from the Athenaeum Theatre in Melbourne. Tickets are just $24 per device. And you can get your tickets. I'll give you the link here, arco.org.au/ and then what stands for Melbourne Digital Concert Hall, MDCH. And you can have a good read as well about the Australian Romantic and Classical Orchestra and all the fantastic things they do in terms of education, looking after up-and-coming musicians that are on the edge, moving into professional area, as well as their amazing professional performers that are from all over the world in their historically performed performance groups. It's going to be a wonderful concert, and again, I'm just going to put up on the screen here the program as to what you can expect. Buy your tickets nice and early, and you can share a computer screen if you want to, but obviously the more you can support the orchestra, the better at the moment, because there are limited performing opportunities. Thank you so much for joining me today, Rachel.
Thank you, Annabelle. It's a real pleasure, and I really appreciate your support for arts in Australia. It really is heartening. Thank you.